to tell us all why we should vote for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like JP said, my name is Connor Landgraf. I'm here to speak about the Class Pass. In case some of you may not know, the Class Pass is the bus pass sticker that you have on your Cal ID. It allows you unlimited rides on AC Transit, unlimited rides on the night shuttles and the perimeter buses around UC Berkeley. And it is a fee referendum that was initiated in 1999. It's up for renewal this year. It's up for renewal for a 7-year contract, which would basically allow students for the next 7 years to have those unlimited rides. It's a very, very important service because it allows hundreds, if not thousands, of students to be able to commute to campus if they live more than 4 or 5 blocks away. It allows students to get home safely in the evenings when it's dangerous to walk around neighboring areas of campus at night. It allows them to ride a nice shuttle bus. It's actually one of the best deals we have on campus. In terms of how much it costs, the current Class Pass costs $78.50 per semester per student. We were actually able to negotiate a better deal for students this year. The price is going to go down to $74. So for the next 3 years, the cost will be $74 per semester. For years 4 through 5, the cost will be $76 per semester. And from years 6 to 7, it will be $80 per semester. So the slight increase there is due to increases for inflation. In terms of what that pays for, a third of that goes back to financial aid, actually. So there's a policy on campus that all campus-based fees are all referendum. A third of them have to go back to financial aid. So that's where part of that money goes to. And then $37 of that goes to AC Transit for the actual bus pass. You can see that's a pretty amazing deal, $37 for unlimited rides for the entire semester. And then $12 of that goes to pay for the next station shuttle on campus. So I urge you all to vote for the Class Pass to allow students for the next 7 years to have the same access to transportation around campus and on campus that you had. Allow students safe access to night safety shuttles and ensure that students have the opportunity to get around easily and cheaply. Thanks a lot.
Hi everybody, my name is Chico. I'm one of your 20 elected ACC senators. And I'm here to talk about not too much of a big deal of a constitutional amendment that remains to the ACC Constitution. I hope everybody knows what the advocacy agenda is. The advocacy agenda is basically the representation of what the ACC is supposed to do for the student body. It's a collective representation of what the students basically what they're concerned about and what the ACC should be doing about. So originally, the ACC Senate is responsible for implementing the advocacy agenda. But historically, since the implementation, since the inception of the advocacy agenda, historically the implementation has been less than subpar. It's just not been, it's not as good as it could be from the ACC Senate side, so we're just wondering what can we do about it. So we deemed that the Constitutional Procedure Review Committee deemed that it was a structural issue from the ACC Senate side. So what we're trying to do is we don't want to delete the advocacy agenda. We think it's a great representation, a great tool, and it's a great tool to represent the voices of the students. So what we're doing is we're streamlining the implementation duties from the Senate to the office of the President, who's supposed to represent the ACC and be the representative and act on the concerns of the student body in regards. So I hope you guys vote for, I hope you guys support the constitutional amendment. It's going to be an excellent way to continue to move forward with the advocacy agenda and really to make sure that what the students' concerns are relevant and acted upon from the ACC side. So, thank you. That's it.
To pay to serve Cal students. And I don't just mean some of Cal students, I mean all of Cal students. Because right now we are. The national average for recreation space is 8 to 10 square feet per student. Berkeley has 3.5. The RSF is only capable of meeting 50% of student demand at most. So we know a large part of the student population is underserved. But what about those that aren't served at all? Disabled students, transgender students, students whose personal, cultural, or religious beliefs prevent them from using mixed-gender facilities, currently have no place in our system. Serving those groups is not just a luxury, it's a responsibility. As Berkeley students, we don't just tell people, I'm sorry, but because of your beliefs or physical abilities or gender orientation, that we can't serve you. It's too expensive, it's too hard. We figure out a solution and we implement it. That solution is the fitness and wellness referendum. So what is the price of the solution? Less than $1 a day. That's it. That's all we're asking students to pay more. For students that are underserved, this dollar will buy them a rock climbing wall, an instructional kitchen with cooking classes, more group exercise space, dance space for student group spaces for meditation and stress management. For students who aren't suited at all, this dollar will buy them for the very first time in Berkeley's history, space that fits their needs. It buys them inclusion. This is why the Disabled Students Program supports this referendum, why the Educational Opportunities Program supports this referendum, why a diverse array of candidates all support this referendum. So if you're okay with the status quo, if you think it's fine to tell disabled students, transgender students, and students with special needs that serving them isn't a priority, by all means, vote against it. But if you think they deserve to be included, that Berkeley students deserve the level of services that a world-class institution should offer, join me in voting for this referendum. Join me in choosing Cal's future in the right direction. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Mahir. I'm an ASUC senator here at Berkeley. So there are two reasons as to why you should not vote for the fitness and wellness referendum. Number one is simply the pricing and the right time and the right place of the referendum. Right now, in 2010, we passed a $223 million lowest file referendum fee. A fee that is planning to increase exponentially over the next few years. The fact of the matter is that we cannot keep increasing fees on our students at a time when so many fee increases are happening right now. Now, obviously, that there's the argument for, a new gym. We need to make more space for students. But when you look at the fact that the average cost of a gym in California is $226, and what you're paying is over $400 over time for a new gym, that does not add up to something that is good for students. Finally, when we look at the issue of transgender students, the issue of disabled students not having access to the gyms, first of all, it's a law that disabled students at a university need to have access to every single university building. Second of all, these things can be achieved without expanding a gym. And third of all, this does nothing for mental health on this campus. The fact of the matter is that even though you add some employees, it doesn't mean that you actually solve that problem. This fee increase is just too much, and when you look to 2030 to 2050, or look from 2017 onwards, your fees will increase to $550 before inflation. If that's a price you're willing to pay to expand your gym and get a new treadmill, then you definitely need to think a lot harder and go to the private market to do it. Thank you.
Correct a few things. The cost isn't $400. The most it goes up to is $167 a semester, which is below the national average. It's adjusted for inflation after that. It goes up a little bit higher, but that's because salaries, wages, all that things are going higher. Disabled students currently have access to the RSF. There's no question about that. But it was designed in 1981, when those issues weren't on people's minds. It does not have the type of facilities that these students need. You can go ask Oliver, the president of Disabled Youth, any of these students, and they support it completely. In terms of mental health, the connection between exercise and mental health is unquestioned. Anyone can go look it up. Exercise increases mental health. And in regards to lower sprout, yes, things are getting expensive, but you can't lump everything together. You have to judge each proposition by its merits. And if you look at something for less than $1 a day, you serve these communities that currently aren't served, and make sure they are included in the services that Cal offers. I think that's a phenomenal opportunity to invest in the future. Thank you.
Alright, so a couple of things. So $167, that's per semester. That is not overall for the year. That's going to be increasing by $30, $50 every single year. And when I say $550, that's in conjunction with the lower sprawl referendum. Both of these referendums get expenses at the same time. Finally, when we talk about disabled students, you need to check yourself a little bit. I'm in the Disabled Students Union. I'm part of the Disabled Students Program, and it's a university that should give us access. It's not we have to pay money ourselves for us to have access to our program. This is just too expensive. It's $167 per semester, increasing over time in conjunction with the lower sprawl referendum. If you're caring about transgender students, if you're caring about disabled students, That is something we should do on our own. That is something the university should take care of. And that is the ASUC's job to go to the university and say that we need to service these students without paying these exorbitant fees to expand our gym space.
Okay, great. So first things first is SB 10 was an ASUC Senate bill to divest the ASUC endowments from fossil fuels. That has already been passed. This is a referendum to divest the UC Berkeley endowments. So currently we do receive 20% returns from the fossil industry. But switching our endowments out of these industries does not mean that we will lose money in any sense. The costs of climate change are dramatically outweigh any costs, which would be very little cost of transferring our funds out of those fossil fuels and into renewable energy or other sustainably and morally judged investments. Harvard students 2 months ago, 77% passed a divestment referendum like the one that we hope to pass next week. This will be, thank you.
Well, if we look at the other groups that we've divested from, it's been the tobacco industry, it's been apartheid, and to put climate change on that same sort of moral ground, I'm not sure really takes into consideration that these are not exactly, that there is a parity in these two things. One, we certainly do have a moral imperative to do what is right for the planet. If we look at the means that we're going about doing it, making a very real scale back in the investments that we're going to be getting, just taking away $6 million and foregone investments for our students, I don't think that this really is a concern at all. That's it.
Hello, UC Berkeley. My name's Elliot, and I'm here today to ask you to stand up and face the corruption in our political system today. We need to put democracy in the hands of people. Many of us have heard about the Supreme Court ruling Citizens United that said that corporations and unions are people entitled to the same rights as human beings. Therefore, they can spend unlimited amounts of money influencing our elections through super PACs. This has a corrupting effect on our elections and needs to be changed. We must act to take back our democracy and put it in the hands of people. Berkeley is joining a national movement to call for a constitutional amendment to say that corporations are not people entitled to the same rights as living, breathing human beings, and that money is not free speech in a political context and needs to be regulated as such. We need a level playing field. In this movement, numerous cities and states have taken a position in support of an amendment. Montana and Colorado have passed people's referenda as well. UC Berkeley would be the first university in the nation to pass this referendum. Yeah. And as a public university, Berkeley needs to do this because we are dramatically impacted by state and national politics. We all know the devastation of budget cuts on our campus, and a healthy democracy is imperative for public education. Once again, UC Berkeley is defining what political freedom of speech is and who must have that right. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brendan Finder, and I am speaking in opposition of the Face the Corruption referendum. While I agree with the previous speaker that the effect of money on politics is reprehensible and it is corrupting, and I agree with most of what he said, in fact, but my problem is with the referendum in itself. First of all, I would say it is repetitive and unnecessary, because the Senate has already, the ASUC Senate this year has already passed an identical bill, SB 10, that says the same exact thing. Also, the traditional use of the referendum has always been for two different reasons. One is if it's something that financially impacts students at UC Berkeley. That's not the case. And two, it's when the author of the referendum disagrees with the previous ASUC Senate decision. Also clearly not the case. But the main reason why I'm not in favor of this referendum is because of the poor wording of the referendum, because of the vague and broad wording of the referendum that states in its main clause that human beings, not corporations, are entitled to constitutional free speech rights. Now, while I agree that speech does not equal money, the wording of that referendum seems to imply, I don't know if that's the original intention, but it seems to imply that corporations should not have any speech rights, should not have any First Amendment rights. That is clearly an error. I would even argue that most people that are against the decision of Citizens United are not necessarily for what this seems to imply. Now, while one component of the First Amendment was used to justify the decision, that does not by any means mean that we should be taking away all of these things from corporations. So it's the wrong topic and it's the wrong word.
The wording of this referendum is good. It is taken from all of the constitutional amendments currently presented in the U.S. Congress. What we are not saying is corporations should not be allowed to sue and be sued. Rather, in the political election process, they should not be entitled to spend unlimited amounts of money, period. First off, we are not saying that election reform is not something that we are pursuing as well. An amendment can put pressure, and this dialogue that we're having now is absolutely necessary in order to have a real change occur in our political system. First, and that is why we are not asking to go back to 2009, before Citizens United, but to move forward to a time when elections are actually in the hands of people.
Well, I maintain that the fact that we're having this conversation in the first place, at least I think in many people's opinions, would verify that there is some wording in this referendum that is contentious and that isn't befitting of what it seems to be, what it wants to advocate. What I'm saying is that the thrust of this bill, or this referendum, should have been two things. It should have been money should not be equated with free speech, and there should be limits on the currently unlimited power of corporations to spend on independent expenditures. That was not the thrust of this. The thrust of this was a vague and half-baked statement that I think, especially since the referendum provides that if it passes every year in perpetuity until Citizens United is overturned, we have to send a copy of it and a letter to the President of the United States. If we're going to make that kind of commitment to speak for the whole entirety of the university, we should at least make sure that the wording is clear. If we're going to speak for everyone here, even if they're not voting. So, especially at a time we have to send it to the President, we should make sure it's clear.